So yesterday, a lot of news in the wrestling world broke yesterday, especially surrounding WWE. The Rock became a board member for TKO, which means he's not like in charge of WWE or UFC, but he's on basically a committee of people who can oversee decisions being made, and basically Triple H has to kind of answer to The Rock in a sense. I saw some people saying like, "Oh, The Rock is the new Vince of WWE." Like, no, technically, he's not. Vince McMahon was on the board of directors for WWE. Yes, he had the most stake in the company, but he was also the chairman. The Rock is not the chairman of TKO. I know you haven't been hearing a lot of news about him recently, but please do not forget that Vince McMahon is still very much the chairman of TKO. Up until something major happens and he is kicked out, he is still the chairman, the CEO. He still has a lot of stake in TKO. The Rock is basically just on the board and basically can have these discussions with Vince about what's going on. We don't even know what's going on with Vince right now. He's just been out of the picture because of injuries or whatnot. But I think with The Rock stepping up to the plate and being in that position, the door could possibly be open for him to be having an even bigger role in the company if Vince has to step away to an even further degree. But that's all speculation. What's not speculation is that The Rock is on the board, and that's awesome. Another one is that Kazuchika Okada is now done with New Japan Pro Wrestling, effective, I believe, at the very end of the month. And people are saying that he might be going to NXT. There were early discussions about Okada going to NXT, which now there are reports saying that, oh, they were premature rumors. I'll have a lot more to say on Okada going to NXT in a separate video, but what I will say is that the idea of Kazuchika Okada going to NXT, though in the ether, in the open, sounds wild that you would put a legendary performer, a once-in-a-lifetime athlete like Okada on your developmental brand. You guys also got to remember that every single major Japanese star that WWE has or had to go through NXT. Nakamura went through NXT. Asuka went through NXT. And the reason that is because WWE, in a way, wants to retrain these people who have been working this more stiff, more lucrative style over in Japan. They have to slow down. They can't go out there and just start bopping people in the face with their elbow. Like, they can't be doing that. They can't work the same way they do in Japan. They got to slow down and they got to tell stories the WWE way. And the only way to get these guys who have been acquainted to that style for ages, because Okada's been working in Japan for 20 years now, the only way to really get him acquainted to that style is to bring him to developmental and have him train a WWE style. If Okada comes in, he's going to come in and he's going to wrestle the New Japan style because that's all he's ever known. And that's not what WWE wants. So yes, you are going to get a watered down version of what Okada was in New Japan. I can guarantee you that if he does go to WWE. But him going to NXT 100% makes sense. I don't know if I honestly agree, but it makes sense. And if it does happen, I'll be locked in. But getting into the big news, that is that WWE has landed a deal with Netflix to bring Monday Night Raw over to the streaming platform. I don't have to explain Netflix to you guys. You guys have heard of Netflix. You know it's the biggest streaming platform in the entire world and has been for the last 10 years. WWE's been shopping Monday Night Raw around to different cable providers and different companies for months, or probably years now. And it looks like they finally landed one with Netflix coming to the platform January 2025. And I just wanted to hold off my opinions on it until I knew all the information, because there was so much coming out yesterday and obviously I was busy, so here we are. So the first piece of major news, which I think everybody was wondering, is would Monday Night Raw be taped? Because obviously Netflix is a streaming platform, but a lot of shows are taped. They don't do a lot of live television shows because most streaming platforms don't do that. The only non-TV alternative platforms, like a YouTube TV or a Sling TV that have been doing live streaming for like sports have been Peacock and Max and Paramount. They've really been doing it for, the Olympics. They've been doing it for the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, which makes sense because a lot of people don't have cable anymore, and streaming them through the service that they pay $9.99, $12.99, $15.99 a month for makes a lot of sense. This is still fairly new, and I know a lot of these streaming services have only been doing it for a year, maybe 2 years at the most. So like I said, it is still fairly new, and a lot of streaming services still don't do it because it's still in very early stages. But one thing we have yet to see from one of these services is a episodic show being live streamed. Yes, we see games, sports games being live streamed, but it's sports games. They're meant to be live streamed. They're meant to be watched in real time. A lot of TV shows aren't meant to be watched in real time. They are meant to be watched when it's intended to be watched. While Monday Night Raw is not a sport, Monday Night Raw is a show that is intended to be watched live. It has been a live stream show since its birth in 1997, so there was almost no possible way you were going to move to a streaming platform and not have the show be live streamed. And even though that question was in my mind, like, would they seriously consider Raw being a taped show so they could upload it in an episodic way on Netflix? It was a question in my mind. I knew they weren't going to go that route, and they're not. It is going to be live every single Monday on Netflix. And I think this is actually going to be a true test for a lot of streaming platforms, and I think that platforms like Peacock and Max and Paramount Plus and Apple TV are going to be watching this deal very, very closely, because if it is successful, and I believe it will be, if it works, I think in 2025 and 2026, we're going to see a lot more providers, a lot more streaming services doing live streamed shows. Instead of Amazon Prime saying, hey, let's release Invisible Season 2 Part 1 in October 2023 and Part 2 in March of 2024, like that makes any fucking sense, they're going to say, hey, since it's already done, why don't we just release these episodes every week live? Because these episodes aren't released live. They're dropped at a certain time, and you're expected to watch it on your own time whenever. The days of binging shows are still here, but I think we are seeing now more than ever that a lot of shows are releasing their episodic shows week by week. The Last of Us dropped on a weekly basis last year at the same time every single day, except for that, I think that 1 month break they had. We've been seeing it a lot more, and I think we're going to keep seeing it, but I think this is going to be something that a lot of companies watch. The deal is also confirmed to be for more than $5 billion and to be over 10 years. Netflix kicked out a shit ton of money for Monday Night Raw. And you know what? It makes sense. A library with 25 years, like, I would have gotten it too. Also, wrestling is still one of the biggest mediums of mainstream media that we have today. I know people don't like to say it, but wrestling is still very big. Having the historic value of Monday Night Raw is going to bring more prestige to Netflix for wrestling fans. Especially because now every single person who has been acquainted to watching Monday Night Raw on USA Network for the last 10 years is going to have to subscribe to Netflix for it to happen. So Netflix is going to have a huge surge of wrestling fans subscribing to their platform if they haven't already, which is exactly what Netflix planned, and which is why they kicked out $5 billion for it for 10 years. There is a 5-year opt-out clause, which I don't see them taking, but we'll see what happens in 2030, right? I'm just happy that we're going to be seeing the days of ratings being less of a thing now that Raw is going to be on a streaming platform and not competing with anybody else on cable. I think this is a huge deal, not only for wrestling, but for streaming and media in general. And it's going to be a very, very, very interesting watch to see what happens in 2025. I'm already subscribed to Netflix. Unfortunately, paying $22.99 a month for that shit, and it's probably going to go up very, very soon. So get ready. I would also like to assume that pay-per-views are probably going to be staying on Peacock because they still have that deal with them that stretches until 2025. Now, what happens beyond that point, I don't know. Maybe pay-per-views move to Netflix as well. I don't know what happens there, but all I do know is that pay-per-views for now are still staying on Peacock. I'm sure Netflix is probably going to get some big events for kicking out that much money. Every single day, WWE has more news coming out, and it just gets bigger and bigger, I feel like. And, you know, as a wrestling fan, I love to see it. But what do you guys think of Raw going to Netflix and WWE and all this stuff going on? Comment down below. Let me know. Let's get a discussion started. Talk more soon.